So today, Rob will be sharing with us three different workflows that he's using to really um, accelerate the development of his new company. The first is how he revs his funding deck. And he is well known for being excellent at fundraising, as well as building a product and how he interfaces with the product development team to really accelerate the product build. And then Rob is also well known for mentoring founders, and he'll give us a little peek into what he does to mentor founders. So with that, why don't we start off with first workflow, Rob?
Before we get started, first of all, I want to welcome everybody. I've had a chance to work with Cogito on several different companies. They are awesome. They were basically like a co-founder for me on a previous company I did called Backbone. And we actually had a Cogito deployed team within the company. They were amazing to work with. And kind of funny, fast forward, one of my, or two of my co-founders right now, right? No, one of my co-founders right now is somebody that I actually met through Cogito. So it's been amazing to work with Cogito. Gus is obviously also an incredible advisor, and I really heavily value his feedback. And there have been several times in the last few months where Gus has given me just absolutely incredibly good feedback that affected and evolved the direction of my company. So thank you, Gus. Before we get started, I wanted to give some context. So I've been building, at the risk of aging myself a little bit, I've been building AI companies for most of the last 20 years, back before AI was a really hot thing. Did a company called DataSift, which was ML-powered real-time data processing for unstructured data and real-time data like Twitter. And then I did customer, which was AI for customer support back when that was actually kind of an edgy thing. Obviously now it's pretty mainstream with companies like Sierra and Decagon. And more recently, I was the co-founder and COO of a company called Crew AI, which is a multi-agentic orchestration platform. Been in the game a long time as an early kind of founder or co-founder. I've also probably worked with somewhere between 500 and 700 other founders, and I've invested in probably 20 other companies and 5 other VC funds. So got a pretty good look at things. Had some great wins and also some spectacular fails. I've been in the game a long time, and I can safely say that there has never been a more exciting time and also more scary time to be an early stage founder. Exciting because what you can get done and how fast you can get it done is 10x what it was before. And AI and tools like Claude and ChatGPT, Claude Code, et cetera, Cursor, have fundamentally changed how it means to be a founder. And so what I'm going to do today is show you all 3 kind of very, very simple use cases of how I use AI a lot. I use LLMs a lot, especially Claude, especially Opus. We as a team, I have 3 kind of technical co-founders. I'm working on a company called Mainwave, should have mentioned that. So for the last few months, I've been building out a company called Mainwave. And I have 3 technical co-founders. I started coding at 10, realized pretty early that I was terrible at it. So I am typically the more product-oriented guy that works with the technical co-founders. And it's just been absolutely mind-blowing how even LLMs have changed my work. We as a company also use Claude Code and Cursor pretty heavily, and some basic agentic workflows. We're, mind you, literally 2 or 3 months in. And we plan to be an agent native company as we scale and plan to roll out agents for a lot of our fundamental workflows from go-to-market to product management. Can everybody see okay? I'm going to assume yes. I'm seeing Sergo nod. All right, cool. So I'm going to run through 3 quick examples and we're going to do some more Q&A. So the first one was the investor deck. So I have an investor deck right here. As you can tell from the format, this was clearly produced with Claude. I produced a deck and I've kind of revved it. I had a great meeting with Gus last week. He provided some incredible feedback on the company, and I then used it to completely update the deck. So, I mean, very simple. This is the deck in PDF. What I did is I then just uploaded it, and then I just basically, well, this was pretty cool. I actually had a Fathom recording, and I would strongly encourage all of you guys to record every call you possibly can, obviously assuming all participants consent. But what was really cool is I literally, rather than try to translate Gus's comments, I took a transcript of the Fathom call and I uploaded it as part of the context into Claude. And then I basically said, hey, Gus made some really good points. I'd like to update the deck based on this. I think it probably means these pages. And so literally I was able to take incredibly good feedback from Gus and rev the deck, which is kind of what I did. So just did a copy paste. I found that when you're fundraising, you typically get to see which slides in the deck are get a good response from different VCs, and it'll probably depend. I typically suggest to founders you want to have 2 to 3 different versions of the deck. One that is maybe more fluffy and vision oriented that for some investors. Another one that is more metrics driven for maybe mid to later stage investors, and a third one that is extremely technical if you're lucky enough to be talking to a technical VC. So what's awesome is you can actually rev the deck and, for example, make it more technical, make it more international by literally just doing simple props. So take this deck and make it more technical. Some technical diagrams. And I know this is extremely simple. And then obviously it just starts going. So one of the things that I've done, for example, is I do a lot of synthesis between documents. So, for example, one of the things I'll do is I'll take the investor deck and I'll say things like, oh, hey, we had a great session yesterday with the team in our stand up where we were talking about how we're going to architect the semantic layer. Here's a transcript. Use it to update the investor deck. And so they'll do that. Claude will do that and it'll update the deck. So yeah, for example, I could also do something like take the investor deck. So something that has happened to me a lot in investor meetings that have gone well is they'll say, hey, I want to introduce you to customers. Does anyone know what that really means when a VC after first meeting wants to introduce you to a customer?
Do tell us.
I'm waiting to see if Aman or Maria or Roy are going to suggest an answer. It means that they're not sure about you. That's what it means. So typically what it means is I kind of like you. I think I like you. I don't know if I like you. So I'm going to talk to product people to see if it's people that are more product oriented and customers to see if it's a real problem. So you see VCs do that a lot. So what's pretty cool is you can kind of take an investor deck and then actually turn it into a sales deck pretty quickly. And typically in the past, that would take a few days, but you can get it done in like an hour or two. So you could do something like this. What technical areas? So I can pick the areas that I want to actually work on. And so Claude has a lot of, obviously I've turned on persistent context. Claude knows me really well. And so I've uploaded just massive amounts of data over the last few months to Claude around my company and kept it pretty clean. And so Claude is able to kind of go back and forth with me pretty quickly. One of the things I'll do is I will typically do a first version of the deck. And then for the first, it'll definitely hallucinate no matter how well it knows me. So one of the things that I'll do for kind of a quick polishing round is I will then go to ChatGPT, upload the deck from Claude, and have ChatGPT critique Claude's deck. And I'll just kind of have them go back and forth, and that's worked pretty well. I do still find that I would not recommend you produce a deck with Claude and just send it out. Yeah, I typically will then go page by page and finesse it. So here you'll see pretty quickly, it's actually Claude's actually creating a new deck. But I found it very, very helpful for A/B testing decks and messaging as you're talking to different customers. Another thing I've done as well is when I see, for example, if somebody sends me a deck of something that's remotely competitive, I will upload that into Claude and ask Claude to produce some contextual slides, or even doing things like comparison tables of how our product compares to stuff that's out there in the market. I've even done this literally in meetings at live in real time, where I've been pitching VCs and they'll ask something like, well, how's your product different than this? And I've had situations where I've been on calls with teammates and they'll ask a question like, oh, hey, why isn't Anthropic just going to do what you're doing? And I'll have somebody else from the team actually produce a slide and then just drop it into the deck. And then, you kind of stall a minute or two and then you go into the next slide and you have a slide that's exactly to what they just asked about, that's super fresh and current. And that looks pretty cool.
Do they know that you're doing that, or is that more on the sly?
No, I try to always be very transparent about my use of AI, including, you know, decks, red line reviews, everything. I try to be very transparent about it. That's just me. Um, okay, so that was example. Let's see, example number one. Example number two, as I mentioned, although I've been coding since 10, I'm a terrible coder. I was a terrible coder in like Pascal, COBOL, HTML. I typically end up being the product guy working with the team. In the past, that meant that maybe my effectiveness was a little bit more limited in going deep with the engineering team, besides being on stand-ups, reviewing repos and everything like that. But one of the things that I love doing now is on a daily basis, and you'll see I'm just going right into this is an old repo. One of the things I'll do is I'll download the whole repo as a zip, and then I will upload the repo to Claude along with some of the product planning documents. And this is just utterly mind blowing. I do this as prep before every daily stand up, where I will actually look at the repo, look at the productivity of everybody on the team, see if anybody's blocked on anything, how's everybody doing on their pull requests, and then I will on a daily basis map our daily progress in the repo and the actual real progress to what we defined for the sprint and the overall product roadmap. Thank you, Rayhan. That's a great suggestion. Appreciate that. There you go. Taking a little screen cap. There we go. So this is something that I've done. So I might say something like, how has our progress been the last few days versus plan? Original plan. And one of the things I've done is I've actually used this to make sure that the hard conversations happen. Like, for example, we were planning to go to a closed alpha release on June 1. I'm not sure, frankly, if we're going to do it. I think it might slip a few days, which is totally understandable. But one of the things that I'll do is I will I'll debate with Claude on how the team's doing and make sure that I get a realistic view of how we're really doing. And I look at, in particular, in every part of starting a company, I look at linearity and use linearity to build predictive ideas of what's going to happen. What that basically means is like, how is the progress day to day? And based on how the progress has been historically, what does that mean for where we're going to be in a week or two? And I use that to as an additional data point to get an accurate estimate of when I think we're really going to be hitting the closed alpha and when I can tell customers they're going to have a product in their hands.
Rob,
I'm going to pause.
A question we frequently get is, how concerned should I be about uploading my source code to an LLM?
I think you should be somewhat concerned, but this is why I said earlier, I think the only moats are really, climbing the complexity ladder and having high velocity scale or taste. I think companies that, I mean, the reality is that companies that are worth, hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars and have, teams of hundreds of engineers can typically get a quick look at your product and rebuild it from scratch, whether or not they have access to your code base. That's my view. And so I personally don't worry about it too much. Part of it is I also view that companies like Anthropic and OpenAI, to scale fast and sustain the valuations that they have, um, need to have trust. And if their reputations get damaged, for example, and I'm not saying that this has in any way happened, but if any of these LLM companies, if word got out that they were essentially like stealing IP from code bases that have been uploaded to Claude Code, things would get very, very ugly very, very fast for these companies. And I think it could even hurt their IPO plans. I think we've all seen companies that um, their founders were controversial, whether or not it was deserved, and it dramatically and very quickly impacted the commercial success of the company. I think a great example of this is Tesla, where Elon, over the course of about 2 or 3 years, by acquiring X and doing Doge, became a highly controversial guy to some parts of the political spectrum, and that massively impacted sales of Teslas, especially in certain geographic regions, from one day to the next. So I think that there is a strong code of ethics running these companies, is my belief, especially Anthropic. And I think that there is also an enormous amount of fear of what might happen if trust were to leak. And so I personally feel very comfortable uploading my code base. Keep in mind, I'm in the first few months of my company and I've got less than 10 people. I think if I was like Salesforce or ServiceNow, I might have a very different perspective on uploading my entire code base to an LLM.
I tend to agree with you. I think concerns over IP theft by the large frontier labs is probably a little bit overblown. I'd be more concerned if I was leveraging one of the Chinese models.
What a great point. Yes, I don't use Chinese models at all. I also don't use TikTok.
There you go. Fantastic.
All right, there's a little bit of spiciness. So lastly, I want to just give you guys a quick example of another this use case, and this was around advising. This one was a friend of the family's. Oh, yeah, here we go. Basically, some friends of the family had this idea that they wanted to. All right, this looks a little bit like a weird emo video from the 80s. Okay, there you go. Yep. All right. So she basically, her and her partner wanted to. Their idea was they wanted to create a mobile app that was going to be kind of like a personal productivity tool for people that was inspired by agile methodology. I think that it was a kind of an interesting call, and I didn't mention who it was, but it was kind of an interesting call to me in a few ways. One, I liked that the two women had spent a lot of time thinking about the idea. That was great. And I think one of the two co-founders was certified in Agile, which arguably some people love Agile. Some people feel like it's a little bit outdated, and they prefer going back to a new version of Kanban or something like that. Anyway, regardless of what it is, I thought it was an interesting idea to use a methodology and structure from producing code to manage personal productivity. I personally manage my productivity on weekly sprints with points. So this was a topic that resonated a lot with me. There was a few things that I think were a little bumpy in the meeting. So the first one was I said to the co-founders that there's definitely been some fantastic companies created in B2B around productivity and project management, companies like Asana and Monday. So B2B use cases and the intersection of B2B and productivity and management, great. Lots of success. And this might be my own ignorance talking, but I could not immediately think of companies that have been built for consumers around productivity that have been highly successful um, exits. There's definitely some fantastic tools out there like Clear and Todoist, but I wasn't aware of companies that had been successful with VCs and had big exits. So what I told them was, look, if you just want to spend 50 to 100K and build something, maybe use Cogito. That's great. If you want to build this and have it be a lifestyle business that generates a few 100K per month through the App Store, maybe in a best case scenario, cool. If you wanted this to be a VC funded company, not cool. Probably not going to happen. VCs, one of the first thing that VCs do when they hear a pitch is they think, what is this like that has made a shitload of money for people? And that's why a lot of times you'll see kind of copycat type companies, is because that's one of the most common things that VCs look for is what has succeeded in the past. You do get anomalies like a company like Airbnb, which in my opinion was pretty unlike anything before, although conceptually had a lot of similarities to companies like Uber. But that's one of the first things they'll do. So I said, hey, I don't know if consumer is the best idea. But anyway, the other thing that was a little weird is, they'd been thinking and sketching out very rough mocks by hand for their mobile app. And I was like, well, can I see them? And they said, well, no, they're still kind of rough. And I was like, are you familiar with what you can do with Claude? And so it was like one of these things where I was like, you can literally rev screens in minutes using Claude. And I do this a lot. So one of the things that I advise startup founders to do is before you build, mock and show it to customers. And there's very different schools. A lot of founders like to just build and dump stuff out. I don't think that's what is the most successful. What I like to do is do a lot of thinking, mock something up, and then rev it with users. And then when you get like a front end that looks really pretty, then you kind of map that to whatever your backend infrastructure is. We did that a lot at Customer. Brad and Jeremy were incredible at doing that, and that helps. So as you can see, I think it thinks that I did a bad job of prompting, and I think Claude thinks that I'm trying to do this for Mainwave, my company, which isn't the case. So we're getting some weird answers. So yeah, it's all about being good in the prompts. I should have been more clear. So let's see here. This has nothing to do. You know what I'll do? I'll just with Mainwave, totally separate. All right, so that would be, yeah. All right. All right. So just for fun, I'm kind of curious what it's going to do here. But funny enough, sometimes this could turn into a good accident because right now what I've been doing is pretty clunky because we've only gone through a few sprints where I'm manually uploading the zip of my repo to Claude. But what would be really pretty amazing, and I think I'm going to do this, is why don't I use Claude and Claude Code to build a little mobile app that I can check on my phone, so I could check on my phone and have alerts of how my team is doing in terms of code commits. So as you can see, being a founder has radically changed. Even being a non-technical founder has radically changed from what it would be before. So we'll just kind of run run my last prompt. Obviously, I have tried to train the LLMs I work with to not be sycophantic, and they still are. So you come up with cockamamie stuff, and they say that's a great idea. You should do it. So that's where I think high velocity taste is really important. Anyway, yeah, it's still doing more B2B, so I would have to probably iteratively prompt it. But I think this is actually like pretty cool. And I actually used screen mocks to make the product feel more polished and real when I was doing my fundraising. For fun, I have actually been, just kind of coaching my family on some ways that they can use this stuff. And it's been kind of a fun journey. It's been a fun way to bond, is teaching my parents how they can use it. A great example is my mother does a lot of volunteering in Connecticut for farmland preservation. Their website for their charity sucks. So I actually mocked up like 6 different versions of their website that they could use to be better, and produce basic HTML files that they could just upload for the website, which was kind of cool. So that was fun.
That's great.
Um, yep. So I use it a lot. So anyway, I think we're pretty much at the end of our time, Gus. Is that correct?
That is, we're just about out of time. Uh, I want to offer up one last call for questions. So if anybody has questions, please put them in the chat now.
Again, I'm at RMB on X. And if you have very specific pointed questions, you can ask. And the most frequent question I get is, can you introduce me to so-and-so? Can you introduce me to investors? The answer is no. If you ask me if I can introduce you to a specific investor that you have researched and provide context around and your deck is good, then yes. What is the craziest use for Claude that you've seen so far? Rohan, I would say for Claude, since I said I'm mostly using it for work, I haven't done anything, I would say, too crazy. Other than I absolutely freaking love downloading the repo every day, or uploading it and reviewing progress. So that has been incredible. We had one co-founder that was a little quiet in a few dailies, and I just went into the repo and saw he was actually committing an enormous amount of code. So that was kind of cool. I've definitely used ChatGPT for a bunch of really crazy stuff. One of my favorites is, I wouldn't say crazy, but some of the ideas that come to mind. I use ChatGPT for, I'll take a picture of the fridge and then upload it to ChatGPT and ask it to suggest 3 different healthy things that I can cook for dinner. So it's super easy, but it saves me 10 or 15 minutes of thrashing around. Super embarrassing, but whenever I go out and buy clothes, I used to usually text pictures of the clothes I was thinking of buying to a friend of mine. Now I can just usually get better answers from ChatGPT. So there's that. And then lastly, I'm very passionate about geopolitical issues. And I'll frequently post and debate people on X and even Instagram about it. And I have found that using both ChatGPT and Claude as kind of editors on my posts so that they are more better constructed is good. So I use both LLMs a lot for when I'm doing work-related and politically related debates. Yeah, my X is at RMB.
Great.
Anyway, in conclusion, this has been super fun. I want to thank Cogito again, and Gus in particular. Gus, you've been an incredible partner on several companies. Love working with you. Highly recommend Cogito. They're amazing to work with.
Well, thanks again. And thank you for coming on executive mode. And thanks, everyone. We'll be sending out a recording of this, and we'll let you know who our next guest is shortly. Thanks again.